Okay, hopefully this is working. So, let's just get started. Just gonna resize this a little bit.
So this is Blender. It can do 3D modeling, texturing, lighting, shading, and rendering. And I'm going to show you how to do all of those things whilst you make your very own donut. And I know this looks complex and challenging, but I promise you it is achievable for even a complete beginner that has never opened Blender, such as yourself. And I know this because millions of beginners have already made their donut, because this is the 5th version of this tutorial. I remake it for every major Blender release, this one for Blender 5.0. And speaking of which, if you have already made a donut from a previous version, rather than make another one, I've actually just released a course designed for post-donut beginners. So if you're interested in that, you can click the link below. For everybody else, you need to download Blender. So if you haven't already, click the link below. That'll take you to blender.org and then just hit the big download button. Now, if you're on Windows, that'll download an executable, which you should install. If you're
I'm actually running Linux and I just downloaded it through Steam. And this is running through Steam. Uh, so yeah, you can also do that.
on a Mac, it's an application you drag to your applications folder. And also, if you're at school or you're on a work computer that won't let you install anything, you can still use Blender. If you download the portable zip version of Blender, then just unzip it, you can run Blender from the folder. Pretty cool. Anyway, however you got Blender, open it and you should see this. Then just click anywhere off the splash screen to close it and you're in Blender. Hey, welcome. So this big section, this big gray area here, this is your 3D viewport, and it's where you'll spend probably 98% of your time, because it's the 3D world. Whether you're making a character, you're building an environment, it all happens right here. So the first thing you need to learn is how to move around in this space, and you can orbit by middle mouse pushing. So your scroll wheel, if you just push it in until it clicks, that's your middle mouse button. And then if you just drag that around, you can orbit. If you don't have a middle mouse button, a lot of people don't, they're on like a laptop with a trackpad or something, you guys will struggle. It's definitely easier if you have a mouse. But in a pinch, top right hand corner, you just mouse over this little circle and then just click and drag on that. That'll do the same thing. Or the third alternative way to do it, edit, preferences, and then underneath input, emulate 3-button mouse. And then if you hold down Alt and then left click drag, that will do the same thing. I don't want that. By the way, whilst I am here, a value that you will want to change, if you're on a 4K monitor, you will probably have noticed that like Blender looks like this, where like everything is really super tiny and you have to squint to see it. So underneath interface, I change
Edit preferences, resolution scale. One point five. Okay.
my resolution scale to at least a 1.5, usually like 1.8. But for tutorials, I go even higher so you can really see everything. But it's obviously much easier to use when you can see things clearly. Okay, so middle mouse drag, that's how you orbit around. You can see we're focusing on our cube at the moment though. So how do we move to somewhere else? You do that by shift middle mouse drag, and that will pan you somewhere else. You can also, over here on the side there, click that little hand, that will do the same thing. But yeah, shift middle mouse drag or middle mouse drag to orbit. And what about zoom? You can probably guess, you might have already done it by mistake, but just zooming by scrolling in and out on your wheel. Or again, you can go to the little magnifying glass there, just click on that and do that. or alternatively, control middle mouse, and then that will also move you in as well. So I've thrown a lot of keyboard shortcuts at you already. Middle mouse for this, shift middle mouse to pan, scroll. If you don't want to have to remember all the hotkeys, because I'm going to throw a lot more at you. If you don't want to have to write them down yourself, I have done it for you. So I put together a Google Doc with all of the most common hotkeys and shortcuts that you might need to use. And it's free. So just click the link below and you can print it out. You can stick it on your wall. A lot of people do that, and it's a big time saver. Okay, now it's really common to like get lost. Like one way is to like end up upside down like this, and then you're like, which way is up? How do I, if you just over here, this gizmo thing, these colored circle things with lines, those are your axes. So if you just click on one of those, that'll reorient yourself. So the Z, that's the top axis, and then you're back, right? You know which way is up because it's that way, right? Which way that one is pointing. Another way, like if you got like really off into the weeds, like you were over here, and then you're like, how do I get back to where I was? If you've got an object selected and you just want to focus on, like just fly to it, and this is a really common hotkey, you use it all the time, it's numpad period, and that'll just fly you to that. If you don't have a numpad, like even a lot of keyboards today, they don't sell them with numpads anymore, I guess because people aren't accountants. They don't need to quickly type in numbers, but I love them because it's really useful for Blender. If you don't have one, you can also use the tilde key, which is that little key underneath your escape key. So if you hold that down and then just drag over where it says view selected and then release, that'll do the exact same thing. So that is how you can quickly change focus to the selected object. And yeah, as I said, you do this all the time. But yeah, I'm going to be using numpad period from now on. Okay, so
That's actually pretty intuitive, the grave key.
we're making a donut. We do not need our cube here, so let's delete it. You can just hit delete on your keyboard, or what I like to do is hit X, which is the alternative way. And it's just easier because my finger is like right there. I know it's another hotkey to remember, but you delete stuff a lot as well, and it's helpful to not have to find that key. So X and then delete. And now I want to add a new object, and I can do that by going to add at the top of the screen there, or alternatively, the hotkey, another one to throw at you, Shift A, and that'll just put it wherever your cursor is, and it's the exact same list. But this list here is, it's extensive. There's stuff in here that I have never used in my 21 years of using Blender. Speaker, never, ever used it, don't know what it's for. Most of the time what you're looking for is underneath mesh. So these are your primitive mesh objects. And generally when you're making something, you pick one of these that most resembles or is closest to what it is you're making. Like if you're making a mailbox, you might start with a cube. You're making a lamp post, you might start with a cylinder. We're trying to make a donut, so we need to start with a torus, which is basically a donut. Look at that. So that's cool. It's a wimpy looking donut though, right? It's very, very flimsy. We want to make it look more thicker, right? So in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a little box that says add torus, and this has additional options for us. Now, if you accidentally clicked off after you added the torus, that box is gone. You can momentarily bring it back by hitting F9, but that's only if you haven't changed something. So essentially, yeah, it's called the last used function in Blender. So that immediately after you do an action in Blender, sometimes you see in the bottom left-hand corner additional options which you can tweak and change things if you need. So if you don't see it, it just means you've done something else and it's gone. But yeah, you can bring it back momentarily by hitting F9 sometimes. But I usually just like redo it. Anyways. So first thing I want to change is the size of this thing. So it is 1 meter, which is like 3 feet for the Americans. It's a big donut. Probably shouldn't be that big. It should be about 10% of that. So 0.1, which is 10 centimeters, roughly about that. And then if I zoom in by scrolling forward, I just need to change my minor radius until it looks somewhat like a donut. So I want to just orbit up, right, and around. So I'm just middle mouse moving so I can see the inside. Then I'll just scroll in like so until, yeah, and I'm just going to change this value until it looks like a donut. Now, you can see as I move this, like it's going really quick and I can't get it on the right value. So when you're clicking and dragging on a value in Blender, if you hold down Shift, that will use smaller increments. And that's another one you use all the time because it's, yeah, sometimes you need small values and it's helpful to get smaller increments like that. So that's pretty good. I might go with that. Yeah, about a 0.057. Okay. And then the other thing you can change here is like the resolution of the donut. You can go like really PlayStation 1 graphics, maybe. I'm going to keep it at 48, but I'm going to increase the other one to about, yeah, let's go 18, like that. 16, 18, yeah, we'll go 18. And that's just a little bit more resolution, and it's just going to help us a little bit later on when we start to shape the donut. Okay, but once I've got that, I can just click off, and now those options are gone. We've committed. That's it. That is the starting point of our donut. Now, the next thing you're probably wondering is, it still kind of looks like PlayStation 1 graphics, Andrew. And that's because it has flat shading. So basically there's two states for a mesh. There's smooth shading or there is flat shading, and it defaults to flat. If you want to change it to smooth, you just right click the object and then go shade smooth like that. And there we go, it's fixed. So basically shade smooth without getting too technical. Anytime there is like two faces, it just kind of smooths out that point like fakery. So it's not actually adding any additional computation times, which is important, but it's appearing to the eye to be smooth. Okay, so in previous donut versions, we would start making the icing, and although that's fun to make like dribbling icing, it can be a little complicated. A lot of users ran into their first roadblocks at that time. So instead, we're going to do something a little bit easier to start with and more practical, and that's to make a coffee mug. So we need to add in a new object, which if you can remember from before, it's the add menu at the top there, or the hotkey, as I like to use, Shift A. And then underneath mesh, you're looking for something that most resembles the object you're trying to create. No prizes for guessing, the cylinder. Okay, so it comes in very, very big. It's completely engulfing our donut. So again, in the bottom left-hand corner, click that little add cylinder, and then I'm going to change the radius first of all, just to bring this back. You can like do this after the fact, like resize something, but it just helps to, at this point, see it all together. I think I'm going to make it around holding down Shift and just kind of drag it back and forth. Yeah, about 0.13, or exactly 0.13. And then the depth, this is just the height of it. And again, you can change this later on, but just want to see it roughly the right size. The big one that's important is the vertices. And we're actually going to make this look more low res. Now, why would we make it look more low res? Because now it's obviously very jagged. The reason for this is that very soon we're going to be adding in something called a subsurf modifier, which adds over the top of our existing mesh. It adds more geometry, like it doubles the geometry and it kind of smooths it out. So actually, if you start too high like this, then you're adding like doubling that geometry and doubling it again, and then you can quickly end up with something that's too computationally heavy. So when you're working and you're going to be doing something subdiv, sometimes it helps to start like chunkier, low res. Anyway, just trust me and set it to 14 like that. Okay, great. So we've got another object and they are completely overlapping. So how do we separate things? Some of you might already know this. You can guess, right? Left-hand side there's a tool that looks like it would be able to move something. It's the move tool. So this is one way to move things. You activate that and you get this little gizmo, and look, I can move it and I can separate them. So this is moving things along the axes. You can also just drag on that, click and drag on that little white circle there, and then that's like freehand drag around. I will say most Blender users don't actually use and move things this way because it's a lot of effort every time you want to move something to like go to the sidebar, activate the tool, click it, move it. It's like most people don't do that. Instead, they remember the hotkey, and the hotkey to move in Blender, and you'll be using this a lot, So again, this is on my keyboard shortcut. It's all in there, but the hotkey is G for grab. Now, you will notice very quickly that when you tap G, the moment you tap it, you are already in the move state. So it's now attached to my cursor, even though I didn't click. Okay, so, and here's the other thing. My cursor could be on the other side of the screen. It doesn't have to be anywhere near the object. And then the moment you tap G, it's now anchored to that cursor. And even more, I think it's cool, when you go to the other side of the screen, it actually, your cursor appears on the other side. So it's just like an infinitely repeating thing there. But at first, this is like hard to wrap your head around because Blender does this for a lot of things, like not just moving something, but also rotating something. The moment I tap R, which is how to rotate something, or S, okay, I thought I might as well just teach you all three at the same time. So G to move something, G for grab, R to rotate, or S to scale something. But you'll see in each of those states, the moment you hit the key, no matter where your cursor is, it's in that state. And that's actually a good thing because, as I said, the number of times you need to move things and rotate and scale things in 3D, if you had to every single time change the tool, then move your cursor over to it, click it, activate it, that's a lot of extra steps. So it's actually really cool to have this like just one tap key and it's already activated. Anyways, okay, so, but whilst I'm in the move state by tapping G, I can also lock it to a specific axis, just like with those arrows that you saw before. So just when it's in that move state, you tap the axes you want to move it on. So that's the X axis, the Y brings it back and forwards, and the Z is up and down, okay? And that's correct. Blender is Z up, Y backwards and forwards. Different 3D applications have different things. There's no like standard, but yeah, that's how Blender's is. And by the way, if you forget which letter is which axis, you can actually see them up there in that little circle there. So again, X, Y, and Z. Anyways, I want to move this actually just a little bit further back right there. So I want my donut to be the front and center, and I want this to be at the back there. But then how do I change my view so I'm no longer just pivoting on my donut? I want to shift my focus to that selected object. It's number pad period. Or again, holding down that tilde key under your escape button and then hitting view selected is the same thing. Okay, so let's make this look like a coffee mug. So we have to edit this object, and to edit an object, we have to change what mode we are in. So in the top left-hand corner of the screen, there's a little drop down, which if you click, we can change it into edit mode. Okay, so when you're in edit mode, you can see the state has changed. The object that was selected now has a bunch of points and lines on it. And you'll also notice whilst you're in edit mode, you can't actually select any object. And it's worth pointing out this because this is a really common thing. A lot of beginners, they say, I don't know what happened, but I couldn't select anything in Blender. And usually it's just they're in the wrong state. They're in edit mode, they forgot, and then they tried to like come over here and then click something and they're like, why is it not selecting? Okay, so you have to be in object mode if you want to select an object. And if you want to edit something, you have to be in edit mode. But going to this drop down and doing this time and again would, again, be annoying. So Blender, of course, has a hotkey for it, and that is Tab. So Tab will just cycle you in and out of object and edit mode, just those two states, which is great because you need to use this all the time. So you usually come in, do some editing, go back into object mode, select something else, edit that one, go back to this. So that's, yeah, good one to remember, Tab. All right, so in edit mode, when I'm in this state here, these little points here, these are called vertices. These are the points that make up the shape of the mesh, obviously. And then you've got edges. And you can actually select by changing the selection type from vertices, which is the default, to edges, clicking that little button, and then I can click on the edges or select faces, okay, like this. And again, Blender has hotkeys for everything. So if you want to just know the hotkey, it's 1 to do vertice select, 2 to do edge select, and then 3 to do face select. Again, make sure you get my keyboard shortcut guide because it's a lot to remember. So I want to select the top of this cup here. It's got a lid on it that I don't want. So in face select mode, selecting that face, I'm going to hit X. Now it's going to ask me, what part do you want to delete? Which might sound redundant, but there is quite a lot of times in Blender you want to delete, even though you've selected a bunch of faces, you want to delete the entire vertices of those faces. So we have to confirm we want to delete just the faces from this list. And there we go. So we've now got a cup with a hole in it. Great. But this cup will not do. It is too paper thin. We could cut our finger on that edge there. So we need to add some thickness to this cup. And while we could do this in edit mode, like you could select everything and extrude it in and whatnot, we don't need to, because there is actually a function we can do to add thickness to anything without needing to go into edit mode. And that is underneath your modifier stack here. So if you click this little wrench, this will activate modifiers. Let's just drag this out. And if you click add modifier at the top there, you can see you've got a number of different options. And the one that we're looking for is solidify. So this is underneath the generate. And just in case this changes for a future version of Blender, you can also go to search at the top there, and you could just type in solidify from the list. Okay, so now that we've got that, you can see we've got a bunch of options, and you'll notice that our mesh now has some thickness to it. And I can change this thickness here. Now, watch what happens as I enter into edit mode. You will notice as I select these faces here, I can't select this inside part of the cup there. And that's an important point, because modifiers are not actually adjusting the real mesh. So the real mesh still exists here. If I disable this from the viewport by clicking this little monitor button there, you'll see that my mesh has not changed. This is just applying this effect after the fact. So it's basically in object mode. It's taking whatever mesh that you give it, which is this, and then it's adding thickness to every face, essentially. So the reason this is so useful is that this is a non-destructive workflow. So I could, at any point, I could be doing a bunch of changes to my mug here. I could, we'll get to all that later on. We could, change the size and things. And then later on I can go, you know what? I think that's a little bit too thick. I'm going to change that. And I can come back to that and very quickly adjust it. So non-destructive, and it's obviously very helpful for a lot of things. Okay, so I've given it some thickness, but I also want to round this corner here. That's way too jagged. Just like before I said, we're going to add in an extra layer on top, which adds more geometry, and that is called your add modifier, generate subdivision surface. So yeah, all the way down there. You use it all the time, but it's like buried in there. Okay, so subdivision surface. So this appears to have like screwed up the mesh. It's like, whoa, what actually happened there? Let's just increase the levels viewport. So this is just increasing the number of times that it doubles the geometry. So you can see this is what we start with, right? This is the start. This is one level. Then this is 2 levels. And then this is 3 levels. And every time you do it, it's doubling the geometry. But you can see it's giving us the effect we want. It's smoothing out that edge there. But because of the way that it works, like basically, if you look at, let's go back to this, we've got this hard corner here, right? That's just like a 90-degree corner. So let me get in a little bit closer here so you can kind of see it. Yeah, it's like a 90-degree, perfectly like that. So when you add in a subdivision surface, it's basically saying, okay, so there's a point here, there is a point all the way over here, and there is a point that's going to go all the, like it's so far it's off the screen, but it's all the way down there. So what I need to do is I need to average out those points. So take the middle point of those 3. So essentially from here to somewhere around here, and I'm going to add in a point like here. Right? And then if you do another level, like level 2, it then places a point here, and then another point here. And then if you do another level, it places another point here, another point here, another point here. And because there's 2 sides to this mug, there's like another one happening on that side, right? So we've now just got this like really super like oval shaped edge like this, okay? Which is why when I turn it on, we get this effect there. So what we first of all need to do in edit mode with our mug here. So I am in, actually it doesn't matter what mode I'm actually in here. But what I need to do is essentially tighten an edge where that smoothing is happening. So it's no longer happening from all the way here to smooth it all the way down to there. I want to happen at like just to about there. So I need to add in more geometry onto this mesh here. So to do that, we need to add a loop cut. That is how you add in another level of another edge. So Control R will add in this loop cut. I believe you can also find it from the mesh, like somewhere in here. Yeah, there you go. Edge, loop cut and slide if you wanted to look it in there. But it's, yeah, Control R. That's another one you use all the time. So when I hit Control R, it's saying, where do you want to place the cut in this mesh? And I could place it, anywhere between a face, essentially. So I'm going to place it along this middle. So you do a single click, and then it's saying, where do you want to place that vertically on this this row of faces, essentially. So you can see as I bring it towards the top there, it's tightening that edge there. Okay, and that's exactly what I want. I want that edge to be much tighter than it was before. So that edge is now looking good, but now what about this one at the bottom there? This one's looking even worse. We've got a lot to fix here. But first, I need to do another loop cut. So Control R, and then again, single click to confirm I want it on that row of faces. And then I'm just sliding it along until it's, roughly about there at the bottom of my mug. Okay. And then you can see it's like this whole area here, this face here, it's become like it's turned it into a star. And not to get too complicated, but basically a subsurf modifier, it has to know what to do. And generally, if there's like faces that are made up of 4 vertices, this is getting complicated, I can tell. It knows what to do. It makes it like nice and smooth. But the moment you have a face that is made up of more than 4 vertices, it's called an n-gon. And it doesn't really know what to do with it. I mean, it does, but you don't know what it's going to do. And it just can make things look a little ugly. N-gon is kind of like a dirty word in 3D space. It's like, you never want to have an n-gon. They are actually useful and they, do have a purpose, but generally speaking, they're good to avoid if you don't know what you're doing. So anyway, I should tell you what I'm doing. The way to fix this is I need to add another loop that kind of just goes around here, right there. So that way I've only got from there to there, and then I can have my ugly star or whatever happening underneath my coffee mug. So I need to add a loop cut, but I can't add a loop cut on just a single face. Instead, what I need to do is, it's called inset, to take a single face and then just like add in a loop around that face. And you do that by hitting I. So I, and then just like it's already active. Again, this is the way, this is why I spent a while to explain it. The moment you activate a tool, you're already in that selection state. So I hit I, and wherever my cursor is, it's now going like, where do you want to put this inset? Okay. So I'm just moving it back and forth until I get it. How tight do I want this edge to look? Something like that, maybe. I mean, it's underneath the coffee mug. It doesn't really matter that much, but yeah, something like that. And there we go. So you can see this looks a lot nicer. And again, because we are in a non-destructive workflow, I've still got my solidify modifier at the top here, right? I could change the thickness of this. I can make this a really chunky looking coffee mug or a really thin one. And that is the benefit of a non-destructive workflow. And then I can also change how high res do I want my coffee mug to look. And this is the way to work in 3D. This is the best way to do it because, if a client wants you to change something or whatnot, keeping in a flexible workflow is definitely a good place to be. Okay, so we have created the start of a coffee mug and we have also created a donut. Good time to save. Good time to save. So File, Save As, or Shift Control S, and then Save As. So the way I like to save things, and you might want to copy this, is to, you come up with a name, underscore whatever, and then you put a number after it. And then you can actually see I've already saved my file. I don't want to over
Okay, window capture is having a problem. Okay, there we go. Yeah, slightly smaller.
Override my existing save in case I need to go back to it for whatever reason. So I just want to add a number to it. And in other softwares, you have to come here and you have to type in the number, right? Not Blender. Blender has a hotkey for everything. If you hit plus or minus on your numpad or on the little field here, oh, you can't even see it. I'm right over the top of it, right there. This little field, these little plus and minus, it'll automatically add a number to the end of your file. So that's, yeah, really useful. So I'm just going to add a 2 there, and I'm going to hit save. It is time to make our coffee mug look like a coffee mug and not like a sad little cup. So we could try to model this from our imagination because, like, hey, we all pick up coffee mugs, we know what they look like, or we think we know what they look like. Something that you learn very quickly in 3D is that when you model something from imagination, it almost always comes out looking a little bit funny. And the reason for that is that your brain is very good at like abstracting away the information that isn't important to it. Like if you just close your eyes right now and just think of a doorknob, like what does a doorknob look like, right? If you had to make one in Blender, what would it be? It's like, okay, well, it's like a sphere bit. You like grip it, you turn it, and there's like a cylinder thing at the back, and there's a cylinder that connects it, and that's kind of it. But then if you were to make that, you end up with something that looks really basic and boring and bad. And then you go actually look at a real doorknob and you forget there's all this other detail that's just not important to your brain, like the little lip inside, the little hole that's on there that's so you can put a key in to kind of like pry it open, or like a rim that kind of like cuts into it. So there's like a separate seam around it. There's the privacy lock on the front. All these things that just don't matter to you when you're turning a handle. And so you forgot that they even existed because you never even saw it, really. So the same thing applies to even something as common as a coffee mug. So it helps, when possible, to use reference images. Now, you can get reference images from anywhere because we have the power of the internet. And you can type in handmade coffee mug and you can pick any mug you want to create. And there's a lot. And, if you want to pick one of these, if you want to just go on Google Images, you can pick one of these and go for it. I'm going to give you an image that I've used, but there's some really pretty ones here. And I was actually shocked just whilst like clicking on some of these sites before. I was like, oh yeah, like that's a cute little handmade mug. And then you go like, oh my gosh, $123.25. And that's a discount from 145. And then you think like, oh, it must be like a one of one, like, a unique thing. Like, no, there's like 9 reviews. Like people are buying it. I'm like, I don't know. I got to make more money or something. Like, I don't know how people are buying $123 coffee mugs. I think it's also like we forget what labor costs. Like you think like a coffee mug is like $2, right? Or $1, or it's free. Like it's just, there's so many of them. It doesn't even matter. But like, no, like to hand make something, like obviously any of these mugs, they take more than a few hours to make if you're making it by hand. So like, yeah, $33 is probably like break even for them. I don't probably not even making any money, but it's just like, yeah. Anyways, whole side topic of like the economy of handmade ceramic mugs, but people are buying them for $123. All right. So all that is to say is I want you to get an image, and the one I'm going to use, the link for this is below. And it's on my website. I've got all the links to everything we're going to be using in this tutorial. But there's two ways to add images. So one way is to go to the add menu and then just go image and then say reference. And then you just pick wherever the reference is and you can drop it in. The alternative way, and
Wait, hold up, what?
so one way is to go to the add menu and then just go image and then say reference. And then you just pick.
Reference. Save image as. Add. Wait, hold up.
Way is to go to the add menu and then just go image and then.
Oh, that's because I was in edit mode. That's why. Okay, so add image reference downloads.
Say reference and then you just pick wherever the reference is and you can drop it in. The alternative way, and it's something that we didn't used to be able to do, and that's to just drag over from wherever it is on your computer and then just drop it into Blender and it will recognize it as an image and bring it in as an image object. So either of those ways will work. So this is the image. This is the one we're going to use. Now, if you quickly orbit around, you'll notice that it's come in at a funny angle. Now, but I don't know why Blender does this. I think it's because they think people want it locked to the perspective that they were at when they brought it in there, but that I've never needed that. So we just need to clear this rotation and then rotate it to the way we want. So to clear the rotation, I'm going to hit Alt R. The alternative way, Object, Clear, Rotation, Alt R, it's the same thing. Now it's flat. So now we need to rotate it, prop it upright so that it is flat onto, how it should be relative to the scene. So I need to rotate it. So I'm going to hit R. So but we're now in freehand rotate mode. And it's relative to where we were looking at it, which is this funny angle. So if you remember from before, when we're in a move state, like rotate, scale, or grab, we can lock something to a specific axis whilst we're in this mode by just tapping the letter of that axis. And if you don't know the letter, you can see we really want it on this red line here. And that red top right-hand corner, that is the X axis. So I'm going to hit X. There we go. So now it is locked to that axis, which is good. And now we want it to be 90 degrees. So you could either hold down Control, and you can see in the top, what that does is that's now moving it in 5-degree increments. Or you could just type in the number 90 on your keyboard and then hit enter. And there we go. So that's how we bring it in and clear the rotation and set it up. So, all right. Now it's way too big. So hotkey to scale something, S, okay, S to scale. And now I'm just going to scale this down. And I can't see my mug. So my mug is behind it. So let me just move my mug. I'll move my mug forward. So let's move it forward to there. Okay. All right. And then now I'm going to look at it like front on. Okay, so I can do that by clicking this little -Y at the top there. That'll do front on. Or the hotkeys, because I use my numpad. For those of you blessed with a numpad, you'll like it. You can hit numpad 1, that's front view, numpad 3, that's side view, or numpad 7, that is top view. But I use those a lot, but again, you can use these if you don't have it. Okay, so front view, and then I'm going to scroll in to zoom, shift middle mouse to pan to the side, and now I'm going to move this over here, and I'm going to scale this down again to get it roughly to be the size of my mug here, because I know that this mug is right relative to the donut, so it should be good. And then what I'm looking at for the size of this image here is I want the top of this rim here to roughly match the bottom down there. So this, like, I want that to match that. So it's still a little bit too big. And you'll notice I can't really easily do it from this angle. I mean, I can, but the problem is that this photograph is taken with a camera from the real world where there is perspective. But we are looking in 3D, and actually when we're in an axis like this, the reason it all becomes flattened is because it is in perspective mode. If you click that little button there, that'll actually put you back into perspective mode, and you can see how things get distorted and like angles and things. So the best reference is actually reference, which is in orthographic, like blueprints for something, but you usually don't have that, so you just go from something like this and just kind of best guess it. Anyways, okay, cool. So that's roughly the right size of image. Now we can model by going into edit mode, by hitting tab, toggle in and out of edit mode, and we can start to shape this to look like this mug here. So the first thing we'll notice is like the general broad shape of the mug is that it actually kind of tapers towards the top. Both lines are kind of tapered upwards. And then there's a kind of a midpoint around about here where it starts to invert and it goes in the other direction. Okay, so it's a very smooth object and perfect for using subsurf modifier, which is what we've already got. So to get that taper going up to the side, I want to shrink the top of the mug here just a little bit. So I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to go into edge select mode at the top there, and then Alt, and then just left click on that line there. Not on like a middle point like here, or it'll select a different edge, but just on the middle there. And then now I want to scale this in to just shrink the size just a little bit. So I'm going to scale that to there, and then I'm going to
Hold up. Oh, okay. I'm on Linux and Alt does something different. Frick. Um, Hold this modifier to activate the minutes button. Oh. Um. Okay. What about loop select? No, that's ridging. Double left mouse button. While not a comprehensive list is used. Edit preference. Keyboard. 3D view. Mesh. Select box. Select loop. Okay, okay, we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. Alt left mouse. Okay. What what can I use instead of alt? Application? Oh, I got mouse button 5. That didn't work. Preferences, key map. Wait, that's select box. Cursor. Edit mesh. Edit mesh loop cut. Edit mesh. Edit mesh loop. Loop select. Mouse button 5. We got it. We got it. Uh, boy. Okay. Thank you, documentation. Uh, and well, actually, I didn't quite get that information from the documentation. It just took a lot of troubleshooting. Science. Uh, experimenting. Gotta love it. Okay. Now we can continue.
Select the line underneath it, and I'm going to do the same thing. So Alt, click on that line, that edge, and then just scale it, about halfway there. Now I want to create this like widened point right here. And you can see like from here, like there's a lip at the bottom, but like from here to here, and then it goes up. I'd say probably 20% up the mug. That's where that middle point is. So this line is close, but I'd probably pull it up a little bit. So I'm going to double tap G, and that'll let me slide that edge there. And I'll put it to, yeah, it's about there. And now I want to pull it out to make it a little bit thicker. So I'm going to hit S, and just pull that out to about there. And now I can see this line here is not quite right. So I'm going to scale this one out as well, just a little bit. Okay, that's roughly the right shape. Okay, now this bit at the bottom here. Okay, so I can see already that I need a little bit more detail. So I'm actually going to have to slide this line up here. So I'm going to hit double G to just kind of slide it up, and I'm going to pull it to about there. You can see now we've got kind of a more curved taper on that edge there, and I'm going to hit S to scale. I'm going to double tap G again, and I'm just by eye, just guessing to try to get this form here. But you can see you can very quickly start to
Wait, hold up. So what's adding loop again?
shape any here on that edge there to about there. Double G to just kind of slide it up, and I'm going to pull it. I'm going to hit double G to just kind of slide it up, and I'm going to pull it to about there. Double G to just kind of
Are
slide
you
it
sure
up,
that's
and I'm going to
double
pull it
G?
to about there. You can see now we've got kind of a more curved taper on that edge there, and I'm going to hit S to scale. I'm going to double tap G again, and I'm just by eye, just guessing to try to get this form here. But you can see you can very quickly start to shape any sort of object you want by just moving, sliding lines around, and scaling things. Okay, so now obviously this face at the bottom here, so if I go into face select mode or by just hitting 3, this has to be this little lip at the bottom there. What do you call that? I guess like a lip? There's probably a word for it. All the pottery people watching this tutorial are going to tell me what it is.
Okay, hold up. How do I do this again? I gotta select the face and do I. Like that. Okay. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Well, I got face select. I gotta have edge select. Okay, so there's that.
And they'll also tell me about the price of manual labor and why that coffee mug was quite well priced, I'm sure. Anyways, I'm going to, I'll scale it in a little bit. I'm just trying to guess, like, where would it start? But, you just do it by eye. I think about there. Okay, and now with this face here selected, I need more geometry because I want to actually pull it out from that face there. But I can't just like pull it down, right? Because now it's stretching it. I need more geometry. And so that is called an extrusion. And thankfully, the hotkey for extrusion is just the first letter of its name, which is E. E for extrusion. And just like inset and everything else in Blender, the moment you tap it, you're now in that mode. I can pull it upwards. I could pull it downwards. Obviously, downwards is what we want. So I'm going to do a single click right there. Okay. And then now, if I go back and just look at it in object mode, and by the way, if you want to see it like the donut, you want to make it look smooth, you can as well by going to Shade Smooth. And that's okay, but you can see that this line here, this is a much tighter line, okay? And the reason that this is happening is, of course, because of Subsurf Modifier and the way that it works. It's essentially going from here to here, and then kind of like, I guess, like a midpoint in the middle there, and it's trying to taper from there all the way in. But then also from this point here, it now has to taper from there to kind of smooth out that line. So we end up with just kind of like this like very smoothed out little nub. But to fix it, we just have to add in more geometry so that it doesn't start the smooth so much further up. So to do that, we need another loop cut, which you might remember the hotkey, or you can find it in the menu, Edge, Loop Cut, and Slide, but it is Control R. So Control
Okay,
R.
Control
When you're in this
R.
mode, where do you want to put it first? So do a single click on this face here. So click, and then it's now saying where do you want to slide it to. So I'm going to slide one to the bottom, like so, and then I need another one right above it. So I did a click there to confirm it. So I'm going to hit Control R, and now placing it on the exact same place, and I'm just going to pull it up. And there we go. And now you can see it's much tighter at the bottom there, and it looks good. And if you really wanted to clean up this bottom base there, you can see we kind of got that like starfishy pattern happening. You could do the same thing we did before, which is select that face there and then do an inset. It's not really that essential. No one's really going to notice it, but you might, and maybe you want to clean it up. So yeah, but that's pretty good. That's great. That's a good start to the mug. It looks good. Awesome. Well done. Now it's time for the challenge of making this handle. So you can see it starts about here and then obviously extrudes around and goes back into itself and is joined here. So how do we do this? So basically, whenever there is a join, and you can see there's like, like a nice like bevel edge there kind of thing, it has to physically be part of the geometry of this. You can't just have it like existing out in space, because then it won't appear to be joined together. So essentially, we have to find somewhere on this mesh to start the handle from. And that point is actually here, right here, which is why I've modeled it this way. Right here is where I'm going to extrude out. Now, before I show you how to extrude it, I first of all want to show you, I'm going to do something and it's going to mess it up. And I'm going to then show you why we need to do something else first before we start extruding. So if I was to extrude this out, we could do the whole handle here, get it back there, make it look perfect, and then later on look at our mug and go, oh no, what is going on? The reason this happens is because of, you might remember, the solidify modifier, which these modifiers, they're not part of the mesh, right? It's happening after the fact. So it's adding a thickness to any mesh that we have here, and it's now adding a thickness to the actual handle itself. So how do we fix that? We fix that by making this go from a modifier to real, like actually bake it into the mesh so that it's actually real geometry. And the way you do that is, first of all, let me just undo all of those, Control Z, of course. The way you do it is by going to the modifier, and then in the little drop down in the top there, right next to that little camera icon, there is an apply. So when you click that, it's disappeared. And now when you go into edit mode though, you can see all that geometry that wasn't there before is now actually part of it. And you can see it if you turn off the subsurf modifier. So I can now make changes to the inner part of my model there without it having affecting the rest of it. So it's
Oh, I'm in edit mode.
actual, you can see it if you turn off the subsurf modifier. So I can now, before is now actually part. Go into edit mode though, you can see all that geometry that wasn't there before is now actually part of it. Edit mode though, apply. So when you click that, it's right next to that little camera icon, there is an apply. So when you click that,
So right there, apply. Wonderful.
it's disappeared. And now when you go into edit mode though, you can see all that geometry that wasn't there before is now actually part of it. And you can see it if you turn off the subsurf modifier. So I can now make changes to the inner part of my model there without it affecting the rest of it. So it's actual real mesh that we can manipulate. Obviously, the downside is it's no longer non-destructive. So that slider that we had for changing the thickness of the mug, we no longer have the slider. It would just mean if we wanted to change the thickness of the mug, we would have to like do it ourselves, like selecting all that stuff and doing it. But that's fine. You have to break the workflow eventually to add in customization. But there you go. So anyways, now that I've got this, now when I select this face here, I can start to do the extrusion. So importantly, make sure you're selecting the right face. If you were to select this one by mistake and then start trying to do your handle and then like twist it around, it would start to get screwed up very, very quickly. So make sure that you've got this red line that's like intersecting your mug there, that it is, yeah, like it's that one. It's like bang on to the middle. And you can actually check if you go into top view mode, it should be directly in the middle of the mug there. Okay, so with that selected, I'm going to go into front view mode with numpad 1 or hitting that little green thing. And then I'm going to hit, again, the hotkey that we use for extrusion is E to extrude out. Now, when you do that, it's using the normals, the hidden, it's like the hidden direction of each of the faces that are on your mesh, okay? So it's kind of extruding it out like that. For most of you watching this, the extrusion there worked perfectly. But every now and then you go to extrude something and it doesn't work. And it's because there's something wrong with the normals of the face that you tried to extrude from. Basically, it would just mean you would have to clear the normals first. So basically, you would select the face, then hit Shift N, and it would clear normals. I've got, by the way, throughout this tutorial, that you're going to run into a lot of problems that I might not be able to explain to you. So I've actually created a troubleshooting guide called the Unstuck Yourself Guide. So the link for that is below as well. But this is just like a database of all the problems you might run into whilst you're doing this tutorial. Because we noticed on the Blender Guru Discord, link for that is below as well, where you can ask questions and share your renders and stuff. But a lot of people are asking the same questions. So we put together this like FAQ troubleshooting guide, and please make use of that. So there'll probably be, when you're modeling things, people will run into issues. So just have a look at that if you run into an issue first. Anyways, sorry to really painfully slowly do this, but we've extruded out a little bit. Now I'm going to move this up. So just grabbing, so G to grab, I'm going to move up. And I might actually now, I'm going to tab out so that I can select my image. So I'm in object mode. And I'm actually just going to move this over. So G and then X, move it over to be about there. Okay. And that'll just enable me to kind of see relative to the mug where it should go. Like, what is the shape? I could do it by eye, but yeah, I figure might as well just, it's right there. Might as well just grab it and pull it over. So I need to position this about here, but you can see it's kind of getting like skewed, right? And that is because it's obviously coming in at like this slanted angle. So with that face selected, I need to rotate it. So I'm going to hit R to rotate like so. Okay, so like that. All right, and I might, just trying to think. All right, I definitely need a loop cut because obviously that bit that's coming out looking like a nub on our mug there. So I'm gonna hit Control R to create a loop cut, and I'm gonna pull it down just so that I can see it's like where it should join, basically at the base there. All right, great. And now face select mode, select that face again. And now we just have to keep extruding around. But what I wanna do is I wanna scale, just make the handle look a little bit thinner. So I'm going to select this top edge here, and I'm going to double tap G just so that I can slide it downwards a little bit to just make it a little bit thinner, because that handle obviously doesn't look as fat as what we had there. So, all right, so face select mode now, and now I'm going to start to extrude. So another extrusion, G to reposition, R to rotate it, and I just want to rotate it so that it kind of follows the contours of this. So I'm going to be rotating it like this kind of angle as we go around. So now E to do another extrusion, click, G, click, R. Now, by the way, there is another way to extrude, which is actually kind of perfect for this. But if you hold down Control and then right click, it will not only extrude, but it will also rotate the faces so that they align. And it can be a little helpful, a bit more easier than doing this like E, G, R, S, G, R. Like, so just holding down control and then right click will just place these little points, and will rotate them so that you don't have to do all that rotation yourself. It really only works for these kind of appendages like this, but might as well use it because it's a very handy way to do it. Okay, cool. So now the tricky bit. It's not really that tricky. It's relatively easy to solve, but it's a conundrum, right? Like, how do we make this mesh with the rest of the mesh? And you do that by, like, the wrong way to do this.
Hold up. Ah, okay. Like that. And then I need to select that face. I E Y E R Y E. Okay. Okay. Oh, jeez. Ugh.
D just so that I can slide it downwards a little bit to just make it a little bit thinner, because that handle obviously doesn't look as fat as what we had there. So, all right, so face select mode now, and now I'm going to start to extrude. So another extrusion, G to reposition, R to rotate it, and I just want to rotate it so that it kind of follows the contours of this. So I'm going to be rotating it like this kind of angle as we go around. So now E to do another extrusion, click, G, click, R. Now, by the way, there is another way to extrude, which is actually kind of perfect for this. But if you hold down Control and then right click, it will not only extrude, but it will also rotate the faces so that they align. And it can be a little helpful, a bit more easier than doing this like E, G, R, S, G, R. Like, so just holding down Control and then right click will just place these little points, and will rotate them so that you don't have to do all that rotation yourself. It really only works for these kind of appendages like this, but might as well use it because it's a very handy way to do it. Okay, cool. So now the tricky bit. It's not really that tricky. It's relatively easy to solve, but it's a conundrum, right? Like, how do we make this mesh with the rest of the mesh? And you do that by, like, the wrong way to do this would be to just like kind of like smush them together, right? And this is kind of like early 3D stuff. Like, a lot of stuff was like this. They kind of mashed stuff and intersected it together. But then you don't get that edge there where it like catches the light. And the only way to really get that is to actually physically like join this mesh together. So this face here has to be connected to this face somehow. And the easiest way in this case to do is to, first of all, we can see that this line here is like cutting into the middle of this this cup here, right? So we really need to just add a line that goes around there to make this area here like one face to match this handle. So I'm going to add that line by hitting Control R, loop cut, click, and then I'm going to slide it up to be, you know, roughly about there. That's fine. And then now, because I've intersected it, that went too far. So I'm holding down Z. Now this is a way of quickly changing the mode that you're viewing something in. And we'll get to these other two once we get to materials, rendering and stuff. But for now, if you just swap to wireframe mode, this will show you through the mesh. There is another way to see through a mesh, and that is to, at the top there, that little X-ray or Alt-Z is a hotkey for it. But that's another way to do it. But yeah, that you can see that's wireframe, and then, oh, hang on a second. Nope, that's X-ray. This is wireframe. But yeah, they're pretty similar. Anyways, so I'm going to select my face here, and I'm just going to pull it out, just so that I can just grab it basically. And now I can go back to my solid view as before. Okay. So I touched on this briefly before, but like a mesh is made up of these individual points, right? This is what you're seeing when you're in vertice mode, these individual points. And each of those points, when you have 4 together, 3 or more actually, you can create a face. And so that's what that is. So essentially, I need to create a new face for this section right here. So let's do that now. So I'm going to select those two, and I've just selected them by holding down Shift like this, and then I'm just going to hit F. F for face. Okay, and then I can do the same on this side, like that. And then I'm going to do the same on the top. And then I'm going to do the same underneath.
Okay. So, Control R. Then I need to 1, 2, 3, 4, F. Okay. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, F. 1, 2, 3, 4, F. 1, 2, 3, 4, F. Why is that there? Okay, there we go. See. G, C, there we go. G, C, there we go.
Okay. All right. So I've done it, and I did it deliberately this way because I need to show you the reason for this issue here. So we've got we've got the faces, so they should be going smoothly across here. But because of the way meshes work and the way they try to the way smooth shading works is it does it based on like a continuous flow of faces. And you will have noticed that when we created this, there was actually a face that is inside here before we joined it, okay? And I'll show you if we go into here. This area here, you should see there is a face that is right here. So because that exists, the smooth shader doesn't actually know that it's supposed to continue on because there's a face that goes down. So it's now kind of mixed. It doesn't know, like it has to create a smooth shading here, but then also one on the top there. And so it's done this weird hybrid thing where it's like it's tried to do it, but there's clearly something going on underneath. So what we need to do is just delete that face. So again, in face select mode, you select that inner face there. And by the way, when you're working in 3D, this is a really common thing beginners do, is they select the wrong face. So you can see how quickly that, like, they're right next to each other, that point there, right? But selecting one or the other, it just happens all the time. So a thing that a lot of 3D artists do is when they've selected something, before they delete it, you just do a quick orbit around, and that'll just like break the perspective and just to verify that that is the actual one I mean to select. Okay, then I'm going to hit.
How do I go into what?
If we go into here, this area before we joined it, okay, and I'll show you if we go into here, this area here, you should see there is a face that is right here. So because that exists, the smooth shader doesn't actually know that it's supposed to continue on because there's a face that goes down. So it's now kind of mixed. It doesn't know, like it has to create a smooth shading here, but then also one on the top there. And so it's done this weird hybrid thing where it's like it's tried to do it, but there's clearly something going on underneath. So what we need to do is just delete that face. So again, in face select mode, you select that inner face there. And by the way, when you're working in
Tab? No. Tab C? Yes, Tab C. Okay.
3D, this is a really common thing beginners do, is they select the wrong face. So you can see how quickly that, like, they're right next to each other, that point there, right? But selecting one or the other, it just happens all the time. So a thing that a lot of 3D artists do is when they've selected something, before they delete it, you just do a quick orbit around, and that'll just like break the perspective and just to verify that that is the actual one I mean to select. Okay. Then I'm going to hit X and I'm going to say faces. Okay. But it's not just that one, right? Like that. I'm actually that should be fixed soon, but anyway, I'll show you how. And then there's one on the inside here as well, okay? Because when we joined it, there was a face here and there was a face over there. So I'm now going to delete that face by hitting X and then say faces. Okay, now that's done. This should be correct, but the reason it's not is one, I think if I need to right click and say shade smooth, and that has fixed it. What can happen sometimes is when you've fixed up some geometry, you might need to recalculate the normals. Like and again, to bring up the normals, there's a secret hidden line that every face on your object has, and they're always pointing outward like that. But when you've created new mesh and you've kind of fixed things or whatnot, you can end up with one of these lines that goes the wrong direction. And I'll show you that actually if I just do this. That's what it might look like. You get this weird like black shading artifacts that's very ugly. So to fix that, you select your entire mesh and then you hit Shift N and that will recalculate it. And now you can see the smooth shading is correct. And just to show you quickly as well, the way I did it just then, where we like created it and then we deleted the faces, don't do this. I'm just going to show you. Like actually what you would do, because it's not this tedious normally. If you had this problem, you would actually select this face and this face first. You delete them ahead of time. And then actually, and there's a faster way to have created this join here, you can select that entire edge loop with Alt, then Shift Alt, select that. And now I could right click and say bridge edge loops, which you only can do if you've got the exact same number of vertices on one side as the other. But I wanted to show you physically
Okay,
creating
so
those points
that's what that
with
meant.
vertices, because that is a really common way to model, to join things together. You select the 4 vertices, you create a new face. Anyways, look at that. We've got what looks like a handle coming out of the mug. Now, if we look at our reference here, we've got it pretty close, but you can see that there's like, it's sharp, right? There's clearly like a crease here and a crease here. And we can do that just by adding in more loop cuts. So I'm going to add in, well, I guess there's 2 ways to do it. One, I can actually just select this edge here. So holding down Alt, just select that and then double tap G and I can bring that in. But when I do that, this area becomes a little bit straight. Maybe not what I wanted. Let's have a look at front mode. Yeah, I might want a little bit more detail there, in which case I would add a loop cut. But, you know, it's really up to you. You might be able to just, you know, move this around and just kind of shape it. Like, look, we're learning Blender. That's really the goal of this. It's not necessarily to make a physically accurate mug. I don't want to overcomplicate things and make things feel like you have to do everything perfectly, but I also don't want to end up with like a trash result and then everyone be like, oh, we did all that effort and now it looks garbage. But you know, you could spend a lot of effort. You know, you could even try and get, like, if you look at, you know, there would be probably like a little line here, like the kind of, you know what I mean, like on the inner part of the thing. You could try and create that. You could really add a lot of detail. The only thing I'm really going to fix is right here where it's pinching. I'm just going to select that edge there and I'm going to double tap G and I'm just going to slide it up. So there's just a little less pinching. And then this part here, like you can see the shape of this face is being very distorted, right? You generally want to keep things as close to a squarish shape as possible, generally. And so I'm just going to select this edge at the bottom there, double tap G, and I'm just going to pull it out just to relieve a little bit of the tension there. And I mean, you can, yeah, there's like a tighter line there, but this will do. This is enough to be perceived as a coffee mug. Now, if you want to just move ahead with the tutorial and get on to the next part, which is going to be on materials and lighting, you can do that. However, if you want a little bit of a challenge, like a little bit of a homework, where you can try to use some skills but by yourself, you will see, looking at the photo here, that we also have a saucer, a little tiny plate for our mug. Now, I didn't include that in my final image. I just had the coffee mug just sitting on the table. But this is a great, very small thing that you could try to model by yourself using the skills that you've just learned, to create something new. So how would you go about adding that saucer? You could have a try at it. It's a completely separate object, obviously, to your mug here. So even if you screw it up, worst case scenario is you just delete it, and then you'll still end up with something that I actually had for my final result, which was a mug without a saucer. But if you want to add that in, it'll be a way to kind of take some of the lessons that you've picked up already, and then try to remember them and the different steps and the things required to create it. Because whilst you've just created something now, it's the best time to try to recall that memory, so that in the future, maybe in a few days or a few weeks from now, when you try to do something yourself, it'll be a lot more readily available to recall that information. So if you want to have a go at doing that,
Wait, hold on. That could be very easy. Shift A. Mesh circle. Make that smaller. G, bring that over here. Select all face. I can't turn that into a face. Oh, frick. Okay. Okay. I almost lost everything. Almost lost everything. Oh boy. Boy. I should start with a cylinder instead. I'll bring it down to 9. Depth 0.1, radius 0.2. G, bring that here. Add modifier, generate subdivision surface. Add modifier, generate tab, face select, delete faces, add modifier, generate solidify. add modifier generate subdivision surface. Oh my gosh, and I'm already most of the way there. Hell yes. So wow. Literally that's it. Okay. Yeah. Okay, when I make it thicker, there's a problem. Edge select there. G C. Bring that up there. What if I do There we go. There's a saucer. G X.
Feel free to. Otherwise, join me in the next part. Welcome back. In this part, we are going to be making the icing. Yes, the exciting icing for our donut. But first, we do have quite a lot of objects going on in our scene. We've got a camera, lamp, we've got an object, an image and stuff. We should try to organize some things. And some of you might have noticed in the top right-hand corner, you've got a list of all of your objects, right? This is called your outliner. And it is like a spreadsheet version of all the objects that are in your scene. And we're going to use it later on to like organize, like create collections, so it's like easier to see and organize things. But the first thing we need to do is just add names to things that make sense. So for example, our mug here is currently called cylinder. So if we had a big scene with lots of objects going on, we can't find it. So it's a good habit to name your objects. So there's a number of different ways you could name something. One is you can just double click it in the outliner, right? You can see now I can type in a name like mug. You can also, in your 3D viewport, you can hit F2, which is the same hotkey in like Windows, I don't know, maybe Mac, but for renaming. And then I can just type in a name like donut. And you can also do that in the outliner as well. You can just hit F2 and that'll also do the renaming. So there we go. So now we've got names that actually make sense. I don't actually need the image anymore, even though I just renamed it. So I'm just going to delete that. All right, so we've now just got a camera, we've got a donut, a light, and a mug. Great. So let's make that icing. I'm going to move my mug out of the way. So G and then X, and I'm just going to throw it to the side so we don't see it anymore. And let's focus on our donut. So we want to make some icing. And when it comes to something as challenging as icing, and really anything, there's so many different ways to make things in 3D, and every single method has a pro and a con. So for example, there is a fluid simulator in Blender. It's not very good, but it exists, and it is a way you could create icing. You could actually like create an object and then simulate it falling and splatting over it. The reason we're not going to do that though is that one, it's incredibly complicated. There's so many things that can go wrong with the simulation. Blender Simulator is not very good. And then also you don't have any control over the final result. You have to keep rebaking things. It's horrible. But there is another way, and that is to just do it by hand. And at first that seems slower, but you have much more control over it, and it's actually pretty easy to do. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And it's also a great way to introduce some more tools and things and get you familiar with different areas of Blender. So icing follows the shape of the thing that it's on. So really, icing is basically the shape that we've got. It's basically half of this donut. So if we got half the donut, we're halfway there. Then we just need to add some variation to it to make it look like icing. So what I'm going to do is duplicate my donut. So Shift D, that is how you duplicate. You can also just go Object and then say Duplicate Objects there, Shift D. And when you do this, you are in the duplicated state, and it's saying now where do you want to place that thing? And we don't want to place it anywhere. We want to leave it exactly where it was. And so I'm going to hit Escape. Now, when you do that, it hasn't canceled the duplication, because you can see at the top there, we've now got donut and then donut 0.001. So there is two objects still there. They're just exactly in the exact same spot fighting for space. Something you actually never want to have is two objects sharing the exact same space, because then when a camera moves or something happens in an animation, you see like flickering, really, really bad. Anyways, I'm going to double click that, and I'm going to call it icing just so that I can quickly tell the two apart. And I want to delete the bottom half of my donut. So I'm going to go into front view mode like that. And I need to go into edit mode next. And I want to select the bottom half of my donut. This is face select. Currently, let's go vertice select. Okay. And if I was to click and then just drag over the bottom half of my donut, it would appear as though as we have got half the donut. However, and this is an area of Blender that is not clear until you run into problems, but if I was to change my orbit, you can see it hasn't actually selected half the donut. It's only selected what it could see from that view. So you have to turn on toggle X-ray first or go into wireframe mode. Yeah, you have to turn that on.
Wireframe mode. Tab C. Okay. So, um, tab, edit mode.
On first, then do your selection, and now it will actually select all the way through an object to the other side as well. By the way, if you find that you can't do this drag selection that I've got, if you've got instead a circle over your cursor, like what I have here, what that means is you have tapped the W key by mistake, which will cycle through in the top little side of your screen there, different selection modes. I wish it was not W. That's one of my complaints I've made to the Blender team. W is so close to the other keys you need on your keyboard. So many people hit this, they hit the wrong key, and then they're in this thing, and then like nothing works. So like, yeah, you want to be in this mode most of the time. But yeah, you can change to these other modes if you wanted to, do a special selection or something as well. But anyways, that is how to fix that. And also just to call it out as well, we're going to be doing some like stuff with this icing that's going to maybe mess some things up and you might run into some issues. I got to call it out again. I've got an unstuck yourself guide, troubleshooting guide for just this tutorial. It is free. Just click the link below and it'll take you there. Because I want you guys to be able to get through this tutorial, but there's so many little things that you could experience in this. So we're going to add it to that guide to try and help you. And if you can't find the answer to your problem in there, hit up the Discord. The link for that is also in it. So I'll link to my website and all the links will be there. So check that out if you run into issues. All right, so I've got the bottom half of my donut. We have to delete it. So I'm going to hit X. When you do this, it's saying which part of it you want to delete. Now, this is one of those cases where it actually matters which one of these you select. Because if you were to select vertical...
He said donut, but I think he means the icing. Tab C, solid. I'm actually going to make the donut invisible for now. Okay, Y, tab C, wireframe.
Because it would appear as though that's what you need to delete. But if you did that, you'll notice you've got now less than half, because along with the vertices selected is that final line that is cut through the middle there. So I don't want to delete that final line. I want to delete the other stuff. So in my options here, I've got an option for faces, which if we try that, you can see is the solution, because when you are deleting the faces, you're only deleting what is a whole face. But these individual points here don't make up a whole face. This part does, so that's left behind. But all the other stuff was deleted. So anyways, we should now have half of a donut. So I'm going to turn off toggle X-ray now so I can see it. And if we clicked off, you'll see that it actually just looks exactly like a donut because, again, they're sharing the exact same space. I do know it's there if I select it in the little outliner there, but it's completely invisible. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add some thickness to this icing. And this is something you should know how to do. You should know it. If you don't know it, you've not been paying attention.
See, stop. Okay. So, I have this. Modifiers. Modifier. Generate. Solidify. Modifier. Subdivision surface.
Um, but if you go to your modifiers, there's a modifier, another clue. It is, of course, the solidify modifier, which adds thickness to any face. So now that we've added that, you think something's broken, it's not working. It is working, it's just that by default, the solidify will add thickness inside. So if you change this offset here to be the inverted, which is 1, it will now add the thickness the other way, which is what we need. Okay, so that's great. But of course, it doesn't look very good. There's a quote which I always repeat. Imperfection is the digital perfection, because the reason this looks fake, it's just perfectly straight. There's no way to get a laser cut icing across a donut like this unless you're using 3D software. So we need to add randomness to this edge here in order for it to look realistic to our eye. So I need to go into edit mode. And when we do that, we can't see the mesh because we've got our solidify blocking our view. So I'm going to click this disable in viewport just to hide it so that I can see it. So when I turn it back on, I know it's there, but just while I'm editing it, in order to see it, I need to be able to have it turned off. So to add randomness, what I could do is I could come in here and I could select one point like this. I could hit G and I could move it down. Okay. Then I could get the point next to it and I could move this one down and then this one, and I could do this and do this, and we could put ourselves to sleep trying to make this donut look good, and it would take forever. But thankfully in 3D there are tools for everything to make your life easier. And so one such tool is at the top here, your proportional editing tool. What this does is now when I hit G, it'll move everything at once. No, what
Proportional editing.
proportional editing tool. What this does is now when I hit G, it'll move everything at once. No, what it will do is it will move everything with a fall off area around it. The
Oh,
reason it's moving the entire mesh with it is that the fall off is so big that it's actually outside of our view at the moment. This was actually something I called out in my usability talk at the Blender conference last year. We could do better than this. But basically, if you zoom way out, you will see there is a circle around it, and that's how big it is. So what we need to do is, whilst we're in this move state, is we need to reduce that. And you do that by scrolling down. Scroll down, 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 down. Oh no, that was the wrong direction. Scroll up. Sorry, scroll up, not down. And that will make it smaller. So scroll up to make it smaller, scroll down to make it bigger. I just completely brain fart. This was actually something I called out in my usability talk at the Blender conference last year. We could do better than this. But basically, if you zoom way out, you will see there is a circle around it, and that's how big it is. So what we need to do is, whilst we're in this move state, is we need to reduce that. And you do that by scrolling down. Scroll down, 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 down. Oh no, that was the wrong direction. Scroll up. Sorry, scroll
So O turns it on and off. Alt O connected only. Yeah.
Scroll up, not down, and that will make it smaller. So scroll up to make it smaller, scroll down to make it bigger. I just completely brain farted. If you don't have a scroll wheel, by the way, and this is another thing to call out, when you're in a move state like we are right now, you can see along the bottom of our screen, you've got a
Okay.
list, and that only appeared there when you're in that state. When I turn it off, all those options are gone. But whilst I'm in this state, there's a bunch of options there. And the keyboard shortcut is actually right there, page up and page down. Okay, so that is how we can increase or decrease. So again, if you don't see the circle, you just have to keep holding page down or scrolling up until it goes down to something that you can see, basically. Anyways, now that we are in that state, I'm going to hit Z, okay, to grab, sorry, yeah. So whilst I'm doing, I don't want to just like freehand do it, because if I pull it down like this, if I watch what happens, if I do it on the edge here like this, it appears as though it's pulling it straight down, right? And I do this and this, but actually, if you looked at it, these would be slightly skewed a little bit, just because of like we're working in 3D. We're looking at things from a different perspective. Sometimes things appear to be going down, but they're actually at like a slight angle. So it helps to, when you're moving something, to think of which axes it's going on. So I want it to go straight down. So G and then Z, and now I'm going to pull it down. Okay, that was a lot of work just to do this one little bit. I'm sorry. All right, okay, so we've pulled it down. Excellent. I'll do a little bit more as well. I'll just do a little bit here. I'll do a little bit here. You can like play with the amount, the fall off, like so. You know, you can play with it. All right, cool. Now if we turn on our solidify modifier, we've got the thickness back, and you can see we've got some variation to the donut there. So let's continue on here. So let's pull this like so. I don't want to go too far because we're going to add some dribbles soon. Dribbles sounds gross, but you know, the little runoff droplets that's going to go down the donut like so. Okay, that is pretty good. Now you can see it's like partly like intersecting it, um, And that's obviously because we've got proportional editing, so it's actually kind of moving some of these ones that are up top and pulling it down as well. It's fine with the solidify modifier, but we're actually going to end up fixing it when we do the dribble anyway, because I'm going to introduce another modifier that's going to fix this. But anyways, let's do this. Let's do the dribble part. So I'm going to look for an area, like let's go, in here where this bit's like running down. And I'm going to, I want to make this like a dribble that goes down the donut here. And currently, I can't really continue to pull this. Like I could like get like a sharp point like that, but that does not look very good, right? We need more geometry essentially. So you might remember the hotkey. If we want to extrude something, it is E. But I can't just extrude one point like that, okay? Because there's no face there. There's nothing that's actually going to be rendered if I just pull one point down. So I need to select 2 points, okay? So 2 points like this. If I hit E and then Z and then pull down and then release, and then if I bring back my solidify modifier, you can see we've got more geometry. Doesn't look very good though. So let's add in another modifier, the same one that we used on the mug as well. It's the subdivision surface modifier. As I say, use these all the time. Use it for most objects, probably have a subdivision modifier because it's so useful. But one of the things it's good for is it, like, besides adding detail, it like smooths things out for us. So that little hard little block that we had there has now turned into a smoothed droplet looking shape, which is exactly what we want. But look, dun, 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 it has separated from the donut. Now, in previous tutorials, I actually did like a thing that showed you how to like use this, but make it like snap onto the donut, and it got all complicated. Everyone screwed up their mesh at this point. You can do this by hand as well. You can like come in here and like try to pull this in piece by piece, but it's actually not necessary because there is a modifier that will just do it for you. So if you go to your add modifier stack and then go to deform, and then you're looking for the one called shrink wrap. And by the way, again, if you can't find it, just go up to here, type in shrink wrap, and you'll also find it there. So shrink wrap, what this is going to do, it's going to shrink it onto a mesh. But you have to define the mesh first in order to see it, because if you don't, it just has no effect. Absolutely, that's what the red is showing you. It's not doing anything. So your target, you can actually like select it from the drop down, or what most people do, you click the little eyedropper and then you select the object. Bam. All right, now it's working, and now we've got some serious Z fighting where the faces are overlapping, and this is horrible. You never want this. All right, so you remember when I was talking about the modifier that it works top to bottom. So essentially what we've done is we've gone add thickness, then add detail, and then shrink wrap all of that thickness onto the donut itself. So what we need to do is change the order of this. And not go halfway, because that also won't do anything. We need to go all the way to the top so that the shrink wrap is happening first. So it's snapping it onto the mesh. Then it's adding the solidify modifier. Then underneath that, it's adding the subsurf modifier. And we can actually increase this, make it a level 2 for the viewport. And you can see it just adds a little bit extra detail there, okay? And you can go even higher, of course, but, you will get... eventually, it'll just get so slow for your computer and there's not really going to be any point, but you can just go to level 2 for now. Okay, so to quickly show you as well what the shrink wrap is actually doing, because it's not that clear. But yeah, this is where that little piece is overhanging, and then it's essentially looking for the nearest point to find this mesh underneath it, and then it is just snapping it to that point. So it's pretty good. Like I can drag this like pretty far down, but there is an extent so I'm just doing another extrusion on this point. So as I pull it down, you can see it kind of loses it. There's a point where it just won't find the mesh anymore. So there's a point at which you should start to pull things into the mesh. It's not magic. It's not going to just magically find it. So if I just pull it all the way out, there's no way it's going to be able to find it. So there is a limit, but you can see it does make our job a lot easier because I can pull it down and I can start to make some big dribbles along my mesh here, and I don't have to really worry that much about the placement because it's just going to automatically snap itself to the donut. I just have to make sure that the dribbles are straight. And if you look at reference, which you should be doing, I'll put some reference on my the link below on my website, so you can have a look and just kind of go through it. But yeah, usually when like droplets form, they kind of like the gravity kind of like builds at a point, and it kind of like gets sucked from the top, and so you end up with like this thin bit in the middle, and then this like globule, which is a crazy word, at the bottom there. But essentially, it just means the piece at the bottom, I'm just going to make a little bit thicker than the pieces above it. Okay, so that's one, but we should do more. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to add more, and just repeat the same thing. Just do an extrusion on these little points there and just kind of drag it down. So let's do that. Because yeah, I remember the first...
I am starting to get overwhelmed now. Uh, blame the tism or something. I don't know. However, I will come back to this tomorrow, uh, or at some point. Uh, and yeah, thank you for watching. Uh, I definitely learned a lot. Goodbye.